This is 5 Live. This is actually where all the action is, and you're not going to be surprised perhaps with what I bring to you. But first, the headlines. 2 accused in the Uttar Pradesh Bahraich communal clashes shot at in an encounter near the Nepal border while they were allegedly trying to flee. 5 accused arrested. NSA slapped against all accused. Politics erupts over the Bahraich encounter in Uttar Pradesh. Congress and Samajwadi Party slammed the Yogi government, claimed the government's failures are being covered up with a fake encounter. Hardeep Singh Nijjar takes oath as Haryana Chief Minister for the 2nd term. Saini gets a rainbow caste cabinet, mega show of strength by NDA mantris. Apart from Nitish, every single one of them was there today at the swearing. Seat-sharing huddle in Maharashtra kicks off. Mahavikas Aghadi hold talks. Sources say Congress may fight on 15 seats, while Uddhav Sena may secure 18 seats. Congress mulls strong penalties. Centre, mulls strong penalties for bomb hoax callers. Centre to bring legislation to tackle hoax threats. Hoax callers to be put on a no-fly list and other action also. Viewer, the irony is almost poetic. Imagine a country like Canada that's grappling with actual, tangible foreign interference. Chinese election meddling, Russian espionage, Saudi economic blackmail. And yet, when it comes to pointing fingers, the Trudeau government has decided to zero in on a TV show. You heard that right, not just any TV show, but a segment by me, yours truly, right here on 5 Live. Don't believe me? Please look at this. Because nothing screams threat to national sovereignty quite like a few spicy monologues from a broadcaster halfway across the world. An opinion piece, this one I did on this show in September last year, has been featured in an ominous new list commissioned by Trudeau's foreign ministry on potential foreign information manipulation and interference. This was after Trudeau's statement blaming India for the killing of terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar last year. Well, in that piece, which all of you viewers so kindly watched, and it went viral at that time, I had basically called Trudeau a terrorist enabler who had insulted the proud global Sikh community by pandering to designated terrorists and defending their Canadian citizenship. So let's break this down just a little bit. Canada has had quite the journey with foreign interference. There's China, accused of meddling in elections, harassing diaspora communities and engaging in espionage. Russia's cyber trolls have been busy trying to disrupt everything from politics to vaccine distribution, allegedly. Not to mention, Canada had to deal with 2 years of diplomatic drama after arresting Huawei's CFO, during which time Beijing decided to flex its muscles by detaining Canadians and halting trade. But when it comes to declaring a real problem, the Trudeau administration finds its smoking gun in my critique of Trudeau's stand on the Khalistani issue. Of course, forget those pesky cyber hacks, trade threats or political pressures. My show, 5 Live on India Today, is where the danger truly lies. How could Canadians even sleep at night knowing there are TV segments in India daring to question Justin Trudeau's stance after he has attacked that country? How dare they? It's almost as if the government decided that actual cases of interference were just too much of a hassle, especially China's. Well, dealing with election meddling, too complex. Addressing economic pressure tactics, costly. Tackling cyber espionage requires money and effort. But identifying a television piece from across the oceans and branding it as foreign interference, easy. Almost too easy. It's the diplomatic equivalent of getting out of a complicated exam by claiming your dog ate your homework. By spotlighting my show, the message seems to be pretty clear. Canada won't stand for any criticism of its leaders, or should I say Trudeau. Not even if it's being aired on a network thousands of miles away. After all, the easiest way to tackle foreign interference is to redefine what foreign interference even means. Now, this whole situation is a masterclass in irony. Well, here's a government in Canada that's been called out for its slow, sometimes lukewarm response to credible terrorist threats. But when it sees an opportunity to turn a broadcast into a political scapegoat, it jumps at the chance. It's almost as if this is less about addressing foreign interference and more about trying to shift attention away from the real issues. And hey, if an Indian journalist's monologue can be reframed as an attack on Canadian sovereignty, why not go for it? Too hard to resist. Well, I should be thanking Trudeau, frankly, for highlighting my journalism and getting thousands more, perhaps millions more Canadians to consume this terrible, interfering misinformation from India. But this is a serious issue, viewer. By naming me and a handful of other Indian voices, Trudeau appears to be using the Khalistani terrorist playbook that he clearly loves so much. Release lists, paint targets, make dangerous suggestions of intent, when all that I've really done is put the spotlight on some uncomfortable realities about Trudeau's politics. Is it not true, for instance, that Trudeau has defended the most egregious and dangerous threats by Khalistanis in Canada as freedom of speech, a tableau showing Indira Gandhi's assassination, pictures of Indian diplomats calling for action against them, even vigilante justice, even violence, attacks on high commissions? Is it not true that Trudeau's PMO is in touch with designated Khalistani terrorists and gangsters? Is it not true that Trudeau's government has repeatedly signaled that the rights of India-designated Khalistani terrorists in Canada are his priority and not the fact that they themselves represent foreign interference from, let's say, Pakistan, for whom Khalistan is a strategic project? Is it not true that a shameless MP from Trudeau's party, Sukh Dhaliwal, is currently sponsoring a petition to open a new investigation into the 1985 Air India Kanishka bombing because he wants a different verdict from the two previous verdicts which have nailed Khalistani terrorists who live or lived in Canada? The one thing we know for sure is this, viewer. Trudeau does not like the truth. And he particularly detests the truth that surrounds him in Canada right now. And by publishing lists of this kind, a list on which I am featured, it is clear that he will go to any extent to distract, divert, and dodge from it. And here's my promise. I will continue to put the spotlight on him no matter how many lists Trudeau decides to put out.
It's within your security agencies. You should be looking into how much they know. You should be engaging. It's, oh, no, tell us what you know. Show us the evidence. And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof.
Canadians from all
Massive embarrassment for Canada. Trudeau, who has time and again blamed India for Khalistani terrorist Nijjar's murder, has admitted that he never really had any proof.
last week at the G20.
All this while, he was just pointing fingers at India on merely the intel that he got without having any solid evidence on India's role.
Work behind the scenes to try and get India to cooperate with us. Their asks of us was, well, how much do you know? Give us the evidence you have on this. And our response was, well, it's within your security agencies. You should be looking into how much they know. You should be engaging. It's, oh, no, tell us what you know. Show us the evidence. And at that point, it was primarily intelligence, not hard evidentiary proof.
Trudeau, who has launched a full-scale tirade against India, found himself facing a massive loss of face after the big admission. In a sharply worded statement, a vindicated India called out Trudeau's falsehood. India said the Canadian Prime Minister has been misleading since the very beginning, thereby jeopardizing ties with India.
We have a large Indian diaspora in Canada, which is the bridge through which we maintain very strong people-to-people links with Canada. We hope, the this particular crisis has been precipitated by Trudeau government's baseless allegations.
At the end of last week, I highlighted...
Trudeau, however, continued targeting India, saying he could have made G20 summit very uncomfortable for Prime Minister Modi by speaking about the claims out in open, in front of the world leaders.
As we approached the end of August and September, the big thing that was happening was India was itself hosting the leader, the summit of the advanced economies of the world, the G20. So it was a big moment for India, welcoming the world, all the leaders of the world to Delhi for a very important summit. And we had the opportunity of making it a very uncomfortable summit for India if we went public with these allegations ahead of time. We chose not to.
Free and open and frank dialogue.
Trudeau, who's accused of winning 2 polls with Chinese interference, is facing heat back home too, with growing calls for his removal from within his party. Trudeau's conservative rival, Pierre Poilievre, asked him to come clean on his China link. Trudeau's admissions, however, give credence to India's charge that he's deliberately smearing India for gains in upcoming Canada polls. Bureau Report, India Today.
Theocratic, unstable.
India slams Trudeau's charges against India. The External Affairs Ministry has just reacted once again after a late-night statement yesterday calling out Trudeau's irresponsible and cavalier attitude, precipitating this disastrous low in India-Canada relations. India's External Affairs Ministry has said, "We reject Canada's false allegations." Here's what External Affairs Ministry spokesperson of India, Ranveer Jaiswal, has just said at his briefing.
India-Canada ties, economic ties, are very strong and vibrant. We have a lot of Canadian pension funds who are invested here. We have a large Indian diaspora in Canada, which is the bridge through which we maintain very strong people-to-people links with Canada. We have a large, possibly the largest cohort of international students in Canada as well. We hope, this particular crisis has been precipitated by Trudeau government's baseless allegations. We have made our position very clear that serious charges have been leveled against us, but so far, as we said in our press release a few days back, and it was reiterated yet again yesterday or today morning, earlier hours this morning, so far Canada has not given any evidence in support of the very serious allegations that they've leveled against India and against Indian diplomats. We also see there is a pattern. The pattern is motivated by political considerations on the part of the Canadian Trudeau government. And there is also, as we have said, there's a clear pattern to smear India for reasons best known to them. Over the last several years now, we have been reminding Canada to take strong action against anti-India activities. We believe that they are being promoted there. They are being encouraged by no action being taken against them. They openly espouse violence. They openly call for separatist ideology. They undertake. You would have seen the kind of tableau that is displayed on important days. Those are surely they are not in keeping with our understanding of freedom of speech, and they are being promoted by several forces there, and for political reasons also they are being given all sorts of support.
Joining me live now from Canada is Terry Milewski, the senior Canadian journalist and author, and someone who knows more than a thing or two about India-Canada relations. He's written seminal books about it as well. Terry, good to have you. Thanks very much for your time here on India Today. I wanted your take, Terry, on what's happened in the last 12 hours, because it's been another escalation in this ongoing crossfire. We saw the deposition by the Canadian Prime Minister where he spoke about how he could have disrupted India's G20 showing. He said there was intelligence but no evidence just yet. India has hit back. There's been a government press conference that said that this entire situation has been precipitated only by Trudeau. He's responsible for it. How do you read this latest escalation, Terry?
Well, I find it very odd, and I'll tell you why. It seems to me very strange that the Indian government right now, asking Trudeau again, is saying that these charges are baseless and false and so on, but while at the same time telling the Americans that their charges, which are basically the same, they're taking very seriously, and they have appointed a high-level committee, and that committee is on its way, or maybe they're in the United States now, and the person identified as the intelligence officer in New Delhi, who supposedly handled the plot against Pannun in New York, has now been arrested, so action has been taken, and the allegations are being taken very seriously. So the theory that is being advanced, as I understand it by the Indian side, is that, these are completely separate files. These are separate cases. Well, not if you read the U.S. indictment. I'm sorry, but if you look at the U.S. indictment from the FBI and the government in New York, you will see, look at paragraph 6, look at paragraph 28, you will see the alleged handler who is facing trial now.
But isn't there a difference, Terry? Isn't there a big difference? By Trudeau's own admission, it's intelligence that has been shared and not evidence, and that's what the government has said. The U.S. system, the U.S. procedures are far more detailed, and it's a different relationship as well.
I'm not sure it's a particularly different relationship. I think too much has been made, if you'll forgive me, of the alleged vast difference between intelligence and evidence. Some intelligence is evidence, and some isn't. I mean, if you have intelligence that something happened and you take a picture of it and it really did happen, it's evidence. But I don't think that's nothing much turns the distinction between the two. It doesn't mean that Trudeau's allegations are false.
But doesn't
always defended India's objection to the atrocious and shameful toleration of Khalistani threats in Canada by Canadian politicians. I think it's appalling and it should change. But as it stands now, India is basically denying on the one hand and conceding on the other. Well, pick a lane. You have to have one.
But why should? But Terry, I'm trying to understand, with the greatest of respect, why should India choose a lane when, and you know this better, India has repeatedly shared more than just intelligence. It has shared more than just transcripts or intercepts, which are the nature of the content that has apparently been shared by the Canadian side this time over the Nijjar killing. Why should India be inclined, to conduct an investigation based on intelligence when Canada, under Trudeau and previous administrations, has never once cooperated, in real terror cases with exponentially more detailed information than just quote-unquote allegations and intelligence?
Well, I have conceded already, I think, and I do just about every day, that Canada's role in letting and normalizing glorification of terrorists, Khalistani terrorists and so forth, is a disgrace. It should stop. And I would like to see Canadian politicians say, okay, from here on in, you have a Vaisakhi parade glorifying the Air India bomber. We're not going to attend. We're done with that now. We're turning a page. We're not going to pander to Khalistani violent extremists. But all I'm saying to you now is that India is painting itself into a smaller and smaller corner. You cannot say that the two cases, the Canadian and American cases, are different. On those paragraphs which I cited, 6 and 28, the accused, Nikhil Gupta, is quoted, was recorded saying to the hitman he had hired in New York, that look,
So,
Nijjar is also a target of this same plot against the
but Terry,
Oh.
you're saying India needs to choose a lane. Why does India need to choose a lane? India has chosen a lane. I mean,
Well,
you cannot possibly conflate Canada and the United States on this front. I mean, there may be some alignment between Canada and the United States as far as Khalistani terrorists are concerned. But surely India is going to deal with this in the way it sees fit, in its own interests. One particular raw officer, according to reports, has been dismissed now. The United States has said on public record that it is satisfied. There is a perception here that that part of it is going to be closed. But Trudeau's war continues. He hasn't even supplied any information.
Well, firstly, I don't believe that he hasn't supplied any information, and I see a lot wrong with the way this has been handled on the Canadian side, but also see a lot wrong with the way it's been handled on the Indian side. Both sides have miscalculated gravely, but at the moment, I'm simply pointing you to the U.S. indictment and saying, well, how can you say that we take that seriously, but not what Trudeau is saying? Well, it's the same thing. It is the same plot against various Khalistanis. So you can't have it both ways, is my point.
I take your point, and we may disagree, but it's still valuable to have that perspective from Canada. Terry Milewski, thanks very much, as always, for your time here on India Today. Also bringing on to our show now is Daniel Boardman. He's senior correspondent with the National Telegraph. Daniel, I should first thank you, because I didn't even know I was on that Canadian list until I saw your social media post and I saw your tweet. So first of all, thank you for alerting me to the fact that my show, the show you're on right now, Daniel, is on some Canadian Foreign Ministry list about misinformation and foreign interference. What crossed your mind when you saw that? You're in Canada, Daniel. Foreign interference is something that, that is part of a lot of media coverage in Canada right now. And here's this list with my name and a list of a bunch of other, journalists here in India, with some very dangerous claims, misinformation, foreign interference, and, hijacking narrative and stuff like that.
It's so incredibly stupid. Yet it is indicative that the people who are this are dangerous, highly incompetent, incredibly stupid, but very dangerous. So right now, what we are doing is we're doing misinformation and manipulating people with foreign interference somehow. Listen, Canada's sort of a silly place when it comes to like what is misinformation, what's disinformation, especially the foreign ministry. I mean, personally, I've been accused to my face. I once asked a question to a candidate running for office about their connections, and I was accused of being an Iranian bot farm in real life. So, by Canadian standards, this isn't the most ridiculous thing you heard, but it's to claim that an allied country, their media is somehow a foreign influence operation is a pretty wild claim from Canada. Yeah. It'd be one thing if we made this about Qatar and we said, okay, everyone in Al Jazeera is an operative of this government, which is also okay. That's one way to go. But if you want to start to set this precedent that anyone on an allied media network giving opinions about your country constitutes foreign interference is ludicrous. And even under oath, our security in administration admitted, India doesn't want to influence policy in Canada. They want to influence conversation. Well, I want to influence conversation in all different countries to talk about the things I want them to talk about. This isn't foreign interference. Like, you can't set the precedent that media in allied countries can't talk about Canada if the government of Canada doesn't approve of the way they're talking. That's asinine. This is an asinine precedent, but it's totally in character of Melanie Joly and Justin Trudeau and a lot of them. So
but help us understand this just a little bit, Daniel, because, surely Trudeau has other priorities. We do know he's having a little bit of quite a bit of political trouble. It's almost satirical, when you say these are wild claims. I agree, because when I first saw this, I thought someone was pulling a fast one. This seemed like some kind of a satirical parody maybe on something that Trudeau would actually do. And there is so much satire about the Canadian Prime Minister out there. But to think that, government resources are being used to, identify things that might affect the narrative, listing some of these handles, including mine, as having bigger reach than Canadian media, and therefore it's dangerous, for the public at large. It seems funny, but I agree with you. It is dangerous. I mean, it seems like someone's painting a target on our backs.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ideologues within the Liberal Party, okay? And the Liberal Party under Trudeau has turned into a bit of a cult of personality. It's run through the Prime Minister's office. They have, pretty ideological control, and they have a bunch of let's be honest, crazies in there. And sort of India falls into the sort of persona non grata among a lot of ideological radicals. It's a lot of the same things to do with Israel, right? There's a hardcore base of Islamists that don't like India. And then, now the global left is turning against India out of solidarity, especially using the excuse of Narendra Modi. So like in the Western conversation, Modi's a scare word to the institutional left, because someone said he's Trump of India, and that means he's bad because this is how we think now. And, the Truanons, as we call them, the Trudeau media sycophants, they're trying to push this Polyev is Modi narrative now to try and mix all these things together. So there's that tint to it, where there's the radical leftists in our country despise India. So it makes sense to me, knowing these people and what they think about different things. I mean, you're seeing this incredible hostility building towards Israel and India within our foreign policy core. And I think that has to do a lot with just, they've stacked the deck with a lot of radicals, ideologues, and this is the result.
The final question that I'd like to ask you on this discussion then, it's been 3 days since this entire, this fresh cycle of confrontation between India and Canada have taken things to a historic low. How do you see things pan out from here? There was that deposition yesterday. You had Trudeau saying all kinds of things, including, my particular favorite from that is, him saying, I had the ability to really spoil things for India during the G20, but I didn't do that because, I didn't want to spoil a great event. To most people here in India, Daniel, that came across as, arrogant and entitled and self-absorbed and frankly quite irresponsible. Is that how Trudeau always is, to say, I could have disrupted it, but I didn't. That's what a nice guy I am.
I mean, yes, all four of those do accurately describe Justin Trudeau and his pattern of behavior. It's arrogant, it's irresponsible, it's short-sighted, it's self-serving. That's par for the course. That's exactly what happens. And you're already behind. You might be, a few hours ahead, but you're living in the past. The country of Canada is already 2.5 Justin Trudeau scandals away. We're already off of he's ruined our relationship with India. The major focus now is there's 11 traitors in Parliament, and he won't tell us who they are. And he's trying to blame that on the Conservative Party. He's trying to blame the fact that there's traitors in his Parliament because of the Conservative Party, even though he's letting Chinese foreign nationals vote in Liberal Party elections, because why not?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how it actually plays out. There's been an External Affairs Ministry press conference that just took place, and each side appears to be waiting for what the next side is going to do. So this isn't going to end very soon. So Daniel, you're going to be on India Today a whole lot this week and over the weekend. Thanks very much, as always, for your time, Daniel. Have a good one, and we'll see you back here on air very soon. Now, meanwhile...
It's great doing misinformation with you.
Thanks, Daniel. Misinformation on 5 Live. That's what Trudeau's priorities are. Well, even while this confrontation and this meltdown between India and Canada continues to escalate, things are very different, as you heard Terry say, between India and the United States. Well, the US has now claimed that they are satisfied with India's cooperation in the allegedly foiled assassination plot of Khalistani terrorist and Sikhs for Justice chief Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, this joker over here. The US claims that New Delhi had informed the United States that the individual who was accused by the US of directing the assassination plot on US soil is no longer an employee of the Indian government. Take a look at this report. Very important.
The Modi government is having an all-out diplomatic war with Canada, with toes heading towards deep freeze. But India is much better off when it comes to Canada's Five Eye partner, US. In the probe into alleged plot to kill Khalistani terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannun, India has reportedly informed the US about its action of arresting a former RAW official, Vikram Yadav, who was named by the US as CC1, a key player in the murder plot. Yadav is no longer employed with Government of India and is out on bail. Reacting to India's action, the US expressed satisfaction over progress made by India.
They did inform us that the individual who was named in the Justice Department indictment is no longer an employee of the Indian government. We are satisfied with the cooperation. It continues to be an ongoing process. We continue to work with them on that, but we do appreciate the cooperation, and we appreciate them updating us on their investigation as we update them on ours.
India has sent a probe team to the US to coordinate with American security officials in the Pannun probe. India maintains that there is no official sanction for any kill plot. An Indian national, Nikhil Gupta, who was allegedly recruited by Yadav, was arrested in Prague earlier this year. He has been extradited to the US to face trial. Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, I want to bring in India Today's Gaurav Sawant, who's been tracking the story very closely. Gaurav, this is an extremely important development. The United States, which had talked about expecting cooperation from India on the Pannun case, has now on the record said it is satisfied, with the cooperation. India has also announced that, one particular person of interest, has apparently been removed from employment. Does this close the matter as far as the Pannun issue is concerned between India and the US?
Well, as of now, the US has said that they're satisfied with the progress. But when you talk about the Five Eyes, they look at this very differently, especially when it comes to the Canada issue. But let's just separate the two. If we were to specifically talk about what's happening in the United States of America, the US followed due process and due process of law. The indictment came through the Justice Department. A court case was launched. Investigations were carried out. Based on those investigations, India was contacted and India was asked to take action. Based on that evidence, India carried out own investigations and certain action was taken, and there is due process of law being followed even in India. So look at the difference between the two countries, Shiv. America followed due process of law, went through Justice Department, went through court, and then approached India. When it came to Canada, it was just a claim, so-called credible allegations made by Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And even today, the Ministry of External Affairs in India says from the 23rd of September 2023 or from September 2023 till date, Canada has shared no evidence with India, given India not a shred of evidence of what investigations have been carried out in Canada. The meeting that's also supposed to have taken place in Singapore between officials of the RCMP and the NSAs of the two countries, no evidence was shared with India. And according to sources in the government, we are told that certain information, total confidential information between two NSAs that was leaked out to the press in Canada. And that just shows one, immaturity or desperation of the establishment, that private conversations, secret conversations between two members of governments on two sides are being leaked to the media in such a way by Canada that would suit their interests and not facts. Even there, the fact that no evidence has been shared with India was not given out by Canada. So it just indicates, Shiv, that as far as Canada is concerned, it's following a political case for Justin Trudeau's desperation and survival. When it comes to the US, they follow due process of law. So that's the distinction.
This is clearly not going to be over. The Five Eyes, as Gaurav very importantly pointed out, are still there. They've put out their statements. The US has said it is satisfied, but the matter isn't closed just yet, and we will continue to track it. Gaurav, thank you very much for that. Now remember, another shocking claim by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who is on a campaign to distract his domestic electorate from the issues that surround him 360 degrees. While testifying before the public inquiry into foreign interference last night, India time, in the federal electoral processes and democratic institutions, Justin Trudeau alleged that the Indian diplomats were collecting information on Canadians who are in disagreement with the Narendra Modi government. Disagreement is how he describes terrorists. And passing it to the highest levels within the Indian government and criminal organizations like the Lawrence Bishnoi gang. That's right, Trudeau mentioned the Lawrence Bishnoi gang. Well, earlier, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or the RCMP, also named the Lawrence Bishnoi gang as an organized crime entity used by India to target members of the South Asian diaspora and Sikh separatists.
Disrupting the chain that was diplomats collecting information on Canadians who are opponents or in disagreement with the Modi government, passing along that information to the highest levels within the Indian government, and then having that information directed through criminal organizations like the Lawrence Bishnoi gang to then result in violence against Canadians on the ground. It was the RCMP's determination that that chain or that sequence or that scheme needed to be disrupted.
It is targeting the South Asian community, but what we've seen is there's specific targeting of pro-Khalistan elements in Canada, or members of the pro-Khalistan movement. Just in order to preserve the integrity of the investigations that are being conducted by our police of jurisdiction partners, I won't be providing any further details in regards to the specificity of those investigations. But what we've seen is from an RCMP perspective, is the use of organized crime elements. And I will say and it's been publicly attributed and claimed by one organized crime group in particular, which is the Bishnoi group. So that's what we're seeing here in Canada. And we believe that that group is connected to agents of the government of India.
And coming up after this break, the centre is mulling strong penalties and punishments for bomb hoax callers who've been crippling as many as 13 flights from India in just the last 3 days. Could there be a new law to tackle this? We'll tell you next.
favorite color.
Dulux Velvet Touch with True Color Technology feels like home.
Dulux. Motorola Razr 50 Ultra comes with Google Gemini. Motorola Razr 50 Ultra comes with Google Gemini.
Hi, I am AI anchor Sana, bringing the top headlines for you, presented by Motorola. Lawrence Bishnoi gang's sharpshooter Sukha, arrested from Panipat, was given contract to kill Salman Khan. 20 people die after consuming toxic liquor in Bihar Siwan. RJD attacks government, labelling the liquor ban in Bihar a failure. Big decision of Supreme Court on Citizenship Act 1955. SC declares Section 6A of Citizenship Act 1955 constitutional.
There's the air raid siren that's just on. That's where the air raid siren goes and building the bhag. All the air raid sirens are sounding, and these are multiple rockets that are being fired from the direction of the Hezbollah. But in Haifa, they've been taken down. Gaurav Sawant in Haifa for India Today.
Grounded in journalism,
on-the-ground reporting. Only on India Today TV.
favorite मिला. Dulux Velvet Touch with True Color Technology feels like home. Dulux, Dulux, Dulux.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
India's big hoax air scare. 13 bomb threats in just 3 days. Government swings into action. New norms issued. Miner held from Chhattisgarh. NSG to be deployed on main routes. Who is threatening India's airlines?
13 bomb hoaxes of Indian airline flights in just the last 3 days. It is not a joke, it's not a one-off. 13 in 3 days means there's definitely something going on. It's a wave of hoax bomb threats causing widespread panic across Indian airline carriers with 13 scares, like I said, and I want to repeat this again, in just the last 72 hours. Well, the latest is Vistara's Frankfurt-Mumbai flight. That was the latest target, receiving a security threat via social media. The flight safely landed at Mumbai airport, where the aircraft was moved to an isolation bay and all passengers were safely disembarked. The government is taking strong cognizance of this issue, with the Ministry of Civil Aviation considering a new legislation to penalize hoax callers. Strong rules, including a potential long-term no-fly list, are being considered for these hoax callers. Meanwhile, a teenager from Chhattisgarh has already been handed over to the Juvenile Justice Board for his involvement in a hoax call or a hoax message that affected at least 3 flights, while intelligence officials are actively tracing other hoax callers. Remember, 13 hoax calls or messages or posts that have impacted and diverted 13 flights in just the last 72 hours.
See, bomb threats are very serious issues. You would have seen in the last 24 or 48 hours, several such threats have been issued. One of our Air India flights was grounded as well. Several other aircraft also received similar threats. Our agencies, Ministry of Home Affairs and other relevant agencies, they are looking into the matter, and hopefully some arrests, I understand, have been made. Some FIRs have also been filed. When I was earlier dealing with bomb threats, I was pointed towards the bomb threats that have been given in the past by one particular gentleman whose organization is a banned terrorist organization in India. And we had raised we have been raising those issues continuously with the US side, and we hope that they will take strong action against such people.
What is the cost of a bomb scare on a flight? What is the cost of a social media message or a hoax caller forcing an airline to divert its flight to another airport, inconveniencing passengers, using extra fuel, using extra resources which they don't have? Is there a number we can put at it? Let me just give you some data. The operational cost of flying any of the usual airliners one flies by in any airline is about 12 lakh rupees per hour of flight. Where a flight needs to be diverted, it means that much fuel is going to be used per hour without reaching the aircraft's intended destination, which means it's basically a waste. So 12 lakh rupees per hour of flight is what that number is. In case of the diversion of a flight, especially if it's in a remote area, there is the additional cost of having to accommodate the passengers, which could be anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 rupees per night. If it goes more than that, it could be even more than that. So we're talking about tens of lakhs of rupees that could be incurred by an airline for every single bomb hoax call. There are logistical challenges as well. It's difficult to secure a new landing slot. That also costs money. Arranging a new set of cockpit and cabin crew in case of a long-range flight like the Delhi-Chicago flight that recently had to land in a remote airport in northern Canada required a new set of pilot and crew because they were already had spent too much time flying. What about compensation to passengers? The huge pressure on rescheduling, all of this imputes a cost that needs to be borne by these airlines. And therefore, it is a huge disruptor to business operations, to their commercials, to taxes, and to civil aviation in general. I want to get a perspective on this now from an airline pilot, Wing Commander Anil Goel, formerly of the Air Force, now an airline pilot. Wing Commander Goel, these flight disruptions because of bomb hoaxes, 13 in the last 72 hours, do you think there's a pattern here?
Shiv, very good evening to your viewers. There is definitely a pattern because these bomb hoax calls are not only limited to domestic or international or one particular airline, but they have been broad spectrum to all the airlines, whether it is domestic or international. So I think there is a bigger story behind this because the intention is to disrupt the Indian aviation sector.
Yeah.
And not only disrupt that, but malign also, because any news concerning the Indian aviation gets a limelight across the world. So not only the Indian aviation sector, but the India name as a brand also gets maligned in this case.
Yeah.
So I see definitely there is a big story behind this. There are few forces maybe operating on this because after COVID, if you see the Indian aviation and economy has run really very well. And despite all the geopolitical challenges in the last 2 to 3 years after Russia-Ukraine war or present Israel-Hamas conflict, we can see the Indian business environment has improved with every day. So the best means of travel for any international businessman who wants to invest in India is via the air route. And if you disrupt this, and there is a scare created amongst the business community, and people see this is not a good destination, then of course there are consequences for that.
My second
as
question,
a country also,
you've painted a picture of the consequences of this, and you're saying very importantly that you see a pattern and some kind of ominous design behind it. As a pilot, sir, can you tell us what happens when a bomb scare happens? What is the set procedure? Do the pilots have a choice, or there is a very clear laid down procedure where an aircraft has to land immediately and investigate?
See, as soon as you get a bomb scare definitely the air traffic controllers inform the pilot, because we don't get any information. Like most of the threats have come via social media.
Yeah.
So this social media access is not available to pilots when they are flying. So this call, whenever this kind of calls come or threat is emerges, this message is conveyed from air traffic controllers to the pilot. And there is a set protocol which is followed, which is defined by Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, DGC and Ministry of Home Affairs. If the aircraft is in domestic environment, the pilots are required to take certain actions. If it is an international environment, then they seek international help from the country over which they are flying, and a set pattern is followed. There are designated airfields where a aircraft with a bomb hoax threat can land, because we need to have a lot of security arrangements over there also to carry out certain checks on the aircraft, certain checks on the baggages, which are kept in the hold, the luggage which is carried, and the load which is carried. So everything has to be properly checked. So those airports have to be properly equipped with equipment which can do these kind of checks. Remember, these checks can continue for after the aircraft lands, can continue for almost 8 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a big loss not only to the airline but to the passengers also who are stranded over there. So definitely, this is a very big area of concern for as a pilot as well as for the passengers.
Thanks for putting this into perspective for us, because this is alarming. 13 such incidents in just the last 3 days, meaning huge losses for these airlines. And remember, there's the festive season coming up, so there's that huge flying pressure that's going to be there on these airlines. And we only hope that things will fall under control. The Home Ministry, the Civil Aviation Ministry, they're all mulling stringent actions against perpetrators and also deterrent actions against those who may be wanting to create such mischief and disruptions. Wing Commander Goyal, appreciate your time and for helping us understand this complex issue. We will continue to track it. 13 flights in just the last 3 days. It's a wrap on 5 Live. If you've been watching, thank you so much. Up next is 6 p.m. Prime with Akshita. 2 accused in the UP communal clashes in Bahraich have sensationally been shot while trying to escape across the border into Nepal. They're still alive, but it's the big flashpoint in Uttar Pradesh. That's with Akshita next.